now. So welcome to the room. This is with Mel. We'll give you 10 seconds to land if you'd like to type where you are in the world. I think we've got someone from Texas, we've got someone from Alberta, Canada.
Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't put that in my name.
From New York City, as we know.
In case you couldn't tell, New Yorker.
Fucking New Yorkers. I don't know why I did that in that accent. I really don't know. All right.
Fucking New Yorkers.
Right. I'm going to get this started. Let's get the show on the road. So welcome everyone to this session. So if you were just here, you were just with Mel, and we've got Mel back again. There's like Mel in a row, Mel squared. This is how to cope with losing people close to you due to differing political views. So if you don't know Mel, she is our body witch. So Melissa's metal has been forged by childhood violence, toxic relationships, financial insecurity, and harmful type A perfectionism. She's now a coach that teaches other people how to reclaim their power through movement and witchcraft. She's dedicated to helping people live their dreams and use the magic of their bodies to heal their wounds. So in this session, before we start this session, please do invite people to this event. I know I've said it's a lot and we're getting to the end, but there's still replays until the 22nd. We'd love if more people could benefit from this. So I'll pop a link there in the chat, and we'll also tell you about the courses at the end. Mel did like a part of one of the superpowers courses as well. There's two parts of it. There's a bit on how to heal trauma, which is Ilan's shaking method, which we're offering for super cheap. It's less than $50 to make it accessible for everyone. And then there's also the superpowers bit, which is looking at how post-traumatic growth, on top of the healing, you can develop your trauma superpowers, and they include like group question and answer sessions or lots of sessions around integrating for facilitators. So that's about going from okay to great in your life, or in a facilitator's course, helping others to do the same. So, okay, as usual, if that's not for you, that's okay. TRE, MDR, somatic experience, and there's lots of different things to help with that. So do note as well, before starting this session, are you resourced right now with being here kind to yourself? So if anything comes up at any point, move, breathe, maybe go for a walk out in nature, speak to a loved one, someone you care about. Obviously, this session's a little bit about some of these things linked to that. But yeah, I just want you to take care of yourselves. And if you would be better served by one-to-one therapy, there's no judgment around that. This is educational. It's not meant to serve as therapy either. Mel, obviously, she'll be watching the chat and anything like that, but note we have question and answer sessions twice a day as well if you have any questions related to some of this stuff or anything that comes up. On that, in terms of what's each day, don't binge watch. We want you to take care of yourselves. That's the most important thing here, learning some stuff and making sure you integrate and take care of yourself. So if you do get tense up, get agitated, space out anything in these sessions, do those things, move and breathe and all of that. So we're expecting everyone here to be robust enough to handle it. So just note that there may be some jokes, there may be a little bit of swearing or language or anything like that. Mel's a cool New Yorker, so we'll expect a little bit of fun. So having said that, I'll hand over to Mel.
Oh, no pressure. Hi, everybody. How are you again? And thank you, Steve. He is the backbone, as every tech host is, of these events. He keeps us grounded. So this is going to get possibly a little hot. It may trigger, as the kids in the street are used to saying these days, it may trigger some anger, sadness, grief, anything. So before we start that, I just want to do some grounding. And if you were in the last session watching me and Florian, then you already know that you can do it really quickly, but I would like to take just a little longer. So I want you to find a position that's comfortable for you. If you need to stand, that's okay. If you need to lie down, that's okay. I'm just going to do it seated. And I'm placing my feet on the ground and putting my butt in the chair and sitting in a way that is somewhat alert, but relaxed. And if you're standing, you have the connection of your feet on the ground, and you can stand in a way that feels alert, but relaxed. You can even close your eyes. And if you're lying down, you can just sink into the floor. I always say the earth, because even in my apartment, I want to feel like I'm close to the earth. Great. Now that you're finding your physical position, I want you to fill whatever shape you're making with your breath in such a way that reminds you that you are whole and that you have the capacity to center at any point by just breathing. I'm going to take 5 breaths together now, and we're just going to feel. That's it. Just feel. Thank you. And then you can move in any way that helps return you to the screen and to the room. So that was very helpful for me. And I'm really glad that we did that together, because I want to make my rhythm and my speech slower for this particular session, because just thinking about the subject matter, I can tap into an immediate momentum of previous conversations that happen in my head. If anybody else feels that, you can like raise your hand or like have an emoticon come on or put something in the chat box of like, there's this part of me that's like, oh, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about politics. And I'm like, no, that's not what we're not going to do. Like, that's not what's going to happen. And we had a little bit of, not a debate, but a discussion in our group of facilitators about what to name this. Because at first we had this very, I think, idealistic concept of coping with your trauma and how not to get triggered by or hate people who have opposing political views. And by the way, for this conversation, I'm going to use that language because it's not about picking on or pointing out what political views I do or don't identify with. That's really not the point. Also, I'm speaking to an international audience, and I really like to represent as a not completely egocentric American, and realize that there are people who have their own political upheavals in the world, and it's not just about talking about all the drama that's been happening over here. So you're going to hear me use very ambiguous language of like, it's just about trying to not get caught up in that momentum, that physical momentum, if that makes sense. And if there's a feeling that comes up for you, if you could share that in the chat box. I already have some awesome feedback. Talking about these polarizing views. When I'm talking about feeling this in my body, the nervousness that comes up around this conversation for me to facilitate it, to make sure that I'm on point and not pointing a finger or kind of getting caught up. Yeah, chaotic, absolutely. For me, resentment has an energy to it where I can kind of get riled up. Anger. And here's something that we can talk about really freely in this group. We're all going to feel some anger when dealing with today's subject matter. And I think self-righteous anger is my favorite flavor of anger. I know we all probably have a favorite, but man, don't you love this, having your like, this is my point of orientation and you don't fucking get it. You're blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like, and when that happens, right? And I'm kind of like playing it up, but kind of not. Like, that's really how it can feel. And once you're caught up in the storm of those emotions, we all, from that reactive place, lack the clarity of being able to manage ourselves in the way we want to, like to show up with like maybe some grace, right? And be able to practice the things we in this group often practice, like empathy and active listening. All that shit falls apart, honey. I fall off my active listening wagon when certain things are brought up. I'm going to say things and then I feel it and I'm like, oh, I got caught up in the momentum, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So I'm reading here, helpless frustration. That's hashtag helpless frustration. Yes. Apathy at this point because it has been exhausting. Thank you. Thank you. How many people are like, I showed up to this because I know I probably should, but like, I'm done. I'm exhausted. I'm burnt out. Some of you are going to be like, no, I'm still in it. Like, I want it. I want to have the combat, the confrontation. Stretched and pulled, resentment and anger, that helplessness, that comes up a lot. I see here, difficult not to give up, attempting to understand, and I think that was understood when there are so many polarizing perceptions. Hopeless. Okay, great. Thank you. So everything that's coming up here in the chat box, and feel free to put more of your cameras on so I can at least maybe even see your faces. It helps me to see how if this is resonating for you and what direction to go in. Shouting and fiery, yeah. Don't think about it or discuss, but really struggle to understand the opposite point of view. It just baffles me. Okay, so this is great. This is exactly where we want to go. So originally when we were talking amongst ourselves as facilitators, we were like, oh, we're going to talk about our trauma and how to not have it triggered. And we don't want to hate the other side. And, frankly, it didn't seem to be hitting the mark in what we wanted to convey. And what I finally suggested was, let's just talk about the reality of the emotions. This is about loss and grief. And for anybody, we're talking about the feelings that come up immediately around the fieriness, the anger, the resentment. But then underneath that is the reaction to the pain, right? That's what the fieriness is. It's a reaction to the pain from the loss of possibly grieving a relationship of any kind. Could be family, could be friends, could be a partner, to a new belief system that we don't recognize. And when that happens in the way that we've been seeing right now all over the world, whether it's political or due to COVID or something else, there is a loss we suffer in that we no longer know how to orient to that person in a way that we once did. And there's a schism there, and that gap feels like it starts to really open up. And that's where we can feel lost, helpless, the grief. And that's really what we're talking about. And I just want to go back to the chat box so people feel heard. Anger at the impact political decisions have, yes, on the life and our planet. It's okay if your internet is misbehaving. I know you're still here with me. Thank you, Michelle. I create my small corner where I can talk about it and shut up when family and friends don't agree. Yep. Fear. Oh, now that's real. That's the real stuff. Okay. Sadness that the country, the UK, I thought I knew is not what exists now. Exactly. So there's that shift I was just talking about, right? Like that perception of like what I once knew. So it can be person that you're close to or you relate to in some way, or it can be country. And that's, that is another form of relating. Anxiety and powerlessness, anger. Does Danielle have the strawberry cream flavored anger? Yeah. Okay. So what am I really talking about? Talking about identity. What you once knew and how you once related to the people around you, maybe those closest to you, and your country, your national identity, whether or not you would consider yourself political before this time or nationalistic in any way, you have an idea of yourself that gets disrupted when all of this kind of intense dialogue gets stirred up. And when the people closest to you, who are mirrors in your life, start to move in a different direction, there's a sense of loss of yourself as well. There's that, I don't understand. That bafflement that leaves you gobsmacked that leaves you helpless, disoriented, and afraid. I'm reading the chat. So true, Melissa. I've lost a previous closeness that was perceived to exist in my relationships. Yes. UK just had a political reshuffle. Feeling the same. Yep. In the US, I feel that. It's polarizing, has increased everywhere, and it's saddening. Okay, so think about it, right? Like, now we're starting to get to the core of this. Oh, grief, fear. And grief is really, it's a mixed bag of fear, resentment, pain, blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. That's how we talk about feelings here. So there's a mixed bag, and it's heavy. We're also talking about going through a pandemic, right? So not only is there constant fear and an understanding that our mortality, the mirror of our mortality, is shoved in our face, and our physical vulnerability and what we once thought we were safe, just living life, now that's been taken, right? And there's no one to, I'm going to say it, there's no one to blame for that, in that we can't string up, or at this point, we can't all agree on who to string up for that, right? So we don't even get the satisfaction of coming together in that way, right? So we don't even get to be like, oh, let's rally around the common enemy of COVID, because we can all agree on how to handle it at least. Wouldn't that be nice? That's like a luxury. Like that would have at least have allowed for some relief, right? Like, we're coming together. And so you have this constant need in your body to reorient on a daily basis to physical threat, feeling your mortality, confronting that in a collective and personal way. And then you have the disruption of, I don't even know what world I'm living in anymore. Like, I don't know who the people are around me. I don't know who my leaders are. I don't know what this is not my country. How many of you, doesn't matter what political side you're on, have said, I don't know who my country is anymore. And that's the part where we can actually come together. So hold on, I just want to be reading in the chat real quick. Yeah, tribes. Okay. Yes, even the wrong planet. What planet am I on? How fortunate that the billionaires are working on getting us to another planet. See, there's a little bit of my stuff slipping out. I tried to stay neutral. I tried. I am a New Yorker. It's hard. I'm doing a really good job so far. So this is the common experience we're having, is that we don't know what's happening day to day. We have to constantly readjust to a shifting reality, and now to the shifting perceptions of the people around us. This gets existential, but really what we're talking about is we are no longer sharing what we once thought of as reality, right? That's where things also get really disturbing and disruptive and disorienting. And now, that's just painting the current scenario. Who here has any trauma in their background around losing people they love? Oh yeah, you're human? Wow, yeah, Is that all perfectly resolved for you? Did any of that come up for you maybe when this is all happening? Right. So many of us had to relive, even when you don't consciously feel like you're reliving it, there's the grief that already lives inside of you from past experiences of loss. They got brought up again. There is a familiar place in your body. It could feel, for me, it feels like a hole in my center, like I've been gutted. That's what this grief of this political climate is, compounded with the fear of our lives, not knowing how to handle everything, and my own traumas, right? So I'm going back to the chat. Brother had just died 6 weeks prior to COVID hitting the US. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Not sure real neutrality is possible. I agree with you, Susan. I don't think it is. It may be dealing with how to deal with not being able to remain neutral while remaining connected. Now that we've all identified why this is so awful, hopefully what you're starting to see is that it actually doesn't really matter what side you're on. We're all having the same experience. And that's the tragedy, is that so much of the pain that we're having is the same. We don't feel seen or understood or heard. And we've lost so much of the ability to empathize, partially because we're just worn out. Okay, it's a lot. But if you could take a moment to think of what we did in that centering practice, remember the specific language I used. This is about not getting caught up in the momentum. And so it helps me because I'm not great at not getting caught up in momentum often. I kind of have a fiery, airy personality, and I need to ground in order to know how to handle things effectively. And so if you could practice acknowledging the depths of which this subject matter hits, it's not a luxury. This is your really primal and about your survival and the survival of your identity as you once knew it. And here's what I'm going to tell you. You can put your reactions in the chat. And there's so many amazing things people are saying. I'm definitely going to stay on afterward for some Q&A. Yeah, there's when you're moving from one place to another, there's a lot of shifting going on. Yes. Oh, Susan said, nice to hear we lost the ability to empathize and you felt guilty. Yeah. Tammy, you've had a lot of loss, 13 people, all for different reasons, from COVID to old age. And it's not tough and scary, it's horrific. You're being so brave and sharing, but when you say it's tough and scary, it's almost like you're trying to protect us a little bit as the audience. And thank you for that, and or maybe blunting it a little bit. But the truth is it's horrific and it's frightening. And I'm here to hold that space for you, because these feelings, you can manage them. The tools we're trying to offer people in this course are about exactly what we just did in this conversation. I acknowledge how I feel. I can identify the feelings. Who feels a little lighter just being able to unpack it all and go, oh, that's what that's about. Oh, right, that's why I'm baffled and feel helpless and hopeless. It's because my identity is being fucked with. My sense of reality is being fucked with. I'm losing people, and I already have grief and loss that I'm still processing from the past. Isn't it easier to handle when you can kind of name it and get a little distance and perspective and go, oh, I'm not fucking crazy, or weak. No wonder I'm having a hard time empathizing. And, I want to be the Dalai Lama every day, and Oprah and Brene Brown all in one. I mean, I have so many people that I call upon. I want to be RuPaul, but I'm not feeling very RuPaul right now. For people who don't know RuPaul, an amazing drag queen, one of my main spiritual leaders. So this is huge. What we've done right now, just being able to unpack the mass, you can let it go piece by piece. I accept that I feel grief because I can no longer speak to the people who I thought I could speak to once before. Things are easier to let go of when you can name it specifically. I release my attachment to an identity that is really no longer present and serving me in this new world. That one's a big leap, I know, but it's okay. It's just a feeling. I guarantee it will not kill you. It's just a feeling. And so the more we unpack it and we just name it, do you know what starts to happen? Not only do you feel lighter, and it becomes a little easier to get centered again, right? Like if we just did a quick 30-second, oh, I have space inside of me. I'm not so filled up. My body isn't so filled up with all those feelings and all the junk and then getting caught up in the momentum and the pull around me. What happens is you clear enough space inside of you to feel the things you want to feel, to use the tools you want to use. Oh, I can actively listen maybe for 5 minutes. Boundaries, loving boundaries. Okay, compassion. I can listen for 5 minutes, or I can say, you know what, I miss talking to you. Let's not talk about the other stuff. I just tell me about your dog. You know how many people I love in my life who, I mean, I'm a practicing witch and yoga teacher and wellness coach. You'd think I don't make people who I've known my whole life uncomfortable as I continue to grow in this best version of myself. And so there's a little bit of pain and discomfort around, wow, I really miss relating to these people on a deep way. And now it's like cocktail party conversation that's so superficial. But it's a boundary, and it creates a container in which you can relate and not have to completely lose the other person because you're too caught up in your own stuff. So today what we did was really, start to name, get it out of you, clear space, recenter, and then decide how you want to show up and acknowledge that you need the boundaries and that you will have a threshold. That you at some point, because of the trauma you're carrying, whether old or because of current circumstances, you have a bandwidth, and you get to pick with whom you speak and for how long and for what about. And these are the tools I want to leave you with today. So I'm going to say it again. Even though the embodiment stuff was amazing and it already feels magical, you get to pick day to day based on how you feel. Are you resourced enough to talk to X who's going to be in the shit and try to blah with you? And you're going to go, I might have 5 minutes today. And I might have to hang up sooner than I want to. And guess what? It's also okay to lie. Oh, hey, are things, yeah, yeah, I saw that on the news too. You know what, I'm so sorry, but I gotta go. I have a meeting on Zoom. Nobody fucking knows what you're doing with your life. Just lie. Get off the phone, lie. It's so much nicer. And you get to keep that bit of like, oh, and then you don't get in the shit. So you get to pick how this goes. Right? So we've just turned this experience around from, oh, wait, they're just feelings. Everybody's in the shit. And I get to decide how it goes. I just get to decide who I'm talking to today, for how long, and for what about. Bam. Your whole life has just changed. You're welcome. Okay. So it's 427. 420 for the people who I'm sorry, Steve. I just keep making these jokes because it's just like it's so ridiculous to me. I apologize. There are so many things. Look, okay to lie, hell's bells. Yeah. Protect yourself in order to stay grounded. Thank you. Protect your peace. Whose responsibility is it to protect your peace? It's not mine. It's not, don't God help you if you're relying on other people. Okay? It's your responsibility to protect your peace. You build your peace and you defend it. And you don't have to defend it with rage. And you don't have to defend it with combative, violent anger or resentment. You can pick smarter tools. Not that I'm opposed to violence, trust me, when necessary. But it's not always necessary. It's just not. So now those sort of lies are self-care. Amen. So now that we've given ourselves permission to construct the reality that works best for us, which is what everybody's doing right now, by the way, well, wouldn't it be nice that as we construct our own little individualized microcosms, that we can also maybe reach out a hand every once in a while and go, hey, how are you? And then when things get a little too hot, you just pull back. How do I know how to do this? Well, not talking to my parents for decades taught me the distance at which I can love them and interact with them and give myself permission to live a life where I protect my peace. It is not an easy thing to let go of your parents. It is not an easy decision. And I don't say it's for everyone, but I have practiced acknowledging what the threshold is, what I'm capable of, and how the distance at which I can manage staying in the loving feeling for that. And so imagine if you could assess the distance at which you need to relate to somebody, or the closeness in which you can remain in a loving energy towards them. So let's do another bit of centering just to close this out, like literally 1 minute, maybe 5 more breaths. Let's just do 5 more breaths. And if you want to, feel your center as your peace and recognize that you get to protect it by any means possible, but you're smart, so you got a lot of means, okay? All right. Let's get comfortable. Find the shape that makes you feel most peaceful and centered. 5 breaths together, starting now. And I would encourage you in an energetic, witchy kind of way to just wipe off whatever remains from this conversation, if any kind of stuff came up for you. And then you get to feel lighter and smile your most gorgeous smile. And then let Steve take over. And as Steve takes over, I'm going to catch up with the chat because people were amazing today. So much. Thank you. And I'll be staying on afterward too for a little bit. All right, Steve, I'm done, Holmes.
Yeah, and in saying that, there's so much stuff that people have written in the chat, so thank you for that. If you do want to write anything more, like a thanks to Mel or something you took away from this session so she can see it, feel free to do so, or just write it to yourself if it was something private and something you just want to remember, because the main thing we obviously want is that you get benefit from this event and these sessions. So thank you, Melissa, and there's one there that's saying, what was it, Melissa, you're an awesome speaker, I could listen to you all day. So I've just popped in the chat there as well. So as I said, share this widely. You know the drill. We want as many people to benefit. It ends on September 22, so do share that top link there. And if you would like to learn more about the courses and you want more of Mel because you could listen to her all day, she's in one of them. So if you want to actually say something, I'll just bring this up on the screen, Mel, but you're just going to be like looking at it and now I'm like distracting you and making you talk again. This is what I do. This is how we do it. So here we go. Let me just bring it up. And is there anything you want to say about what you added into the course before I talk?
I would say that I got to contribute some of my own story. And what I want people to know is that the background is important to only a point, but that as people go through the course and they see all the facilitator stories and what we contribute in our background, that it's really about letting you know that you can take your experience and thrive, and that we're waiting here to show you that. And that the background stuff is somewhat interesting, but it's more about how we can take our adaptions to those stories and those experiences and become really superheroes in our own lives. That's all. That's all.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. So yeah, as you can see, there's 3 different levels, and of course, feel free to email us if you don't understand what difference is. And we've got 3 different levels. So there's Heal Your Trauma, which is with Elan using a shaking method. Obviously, there's various ways to heal stuff. So it could be like EMDR or TRE or somatic experiencing or a lot of other modalities. However, Elan's stuff, we've made it super accessible, so as many people as possible can access it. And if you're really struggling, if you're like from a country where the exchange isn't good or you really have been out of work and can't afford anything, feel free to email us as well and we'll try and make that accessible to everyone. So that's the course with Elan. And then as Mel said, these are the ones where you're looking at building those superpowers, those skills, so whether it's your personal superpowers. So this is kind of healing your trauma is about getting to like good enough to work, to be in relationship, all of this. And the superpower stuff is about becoming great, so going from good to great in your own life. There's some live Q&A sessions or helping others to do the same, which is why this is so extended and you've got these peer groups. And so these ones are limited in numbers just because we don't want too many people in the peer groups. We want it more personal, but that's what's in there. Just check it out if you're interested. I'm not going to hard sell you, and of course don't rush into it. Just make sure it's right for you. It might not be the right time or anything like that. So yeah, I hope that all makes sense. As well, replays, as I said, there's a link there. Please don't share that like publicly on Facebook or anything like that. But do share stuff around so that people can see specific things and which will benefit from them. So finally, I think that's most of the stuff. I'll just give you a quick run through on what's coming up, and then we can hand back to Mel for a few minutes of if you have any questions or anything like that. So here we go. So next up, I should have just kept my screen sharing, shouldn't I? Just want everyone to look at me again for some reason. I'm just sick of Mel being the star. Like I get jealous, but no. Mel's the best star. It's okay. So next up, we've got a talk from Elan on how to talk to yourself like a friend. So looking at inner critic stuff. Then we've got Paul coming up, Paul Linden. He was Mark's teacher, and he was one of my first embodiment teachers as well. He's great. He's looking at how to actually feel safe. So he's a martial artist. He's been Aikido guy for over half a century, so very experienced in looking at that. Mark and Danielle recorded a talk also on the front lines. That's for healthcare professionals, emergency responders, humanitarians, all these sorts of things. They have lots of experience in high stress environments, different war zones. Both Mark and Danielle have spent a good bit of time in Afghanistan, as an example. And then tomorrow we've got a lot of good stuff. That one's going to be trippy in the morning. Mark's stuff around mysticism, stuff on letting go, stuff around money. If you have any questions from this or any other talks, we've got Roger Mills at 12 p.m. UK. We've got Patricia at 6 p.m. UK, which is 1 p.m. Eastern. David Bocelli, that is a great talk on post-traumatic growth and professionals. I would highly recommend going to that. He's awesome. Yeah, there's a shit ton of good stuff. And Mel's back as well. There's even a sort of sweary thing in there, which is unexpected. So yeah, do keep coming back and share it with people. So anything you want to say in closing, Mel, before I sort of stop this and do a little private Q&A thing?
Yes, I would like to acknowledge for people who have been sharing very openly in the chat about the loss of losing people in death for various reasons in this time period. I don't use the word grief lightly, and I don't collapse those experiences under that same umbrella, that the loss of that person and persons, that is a different experience than the kind of grief I'm talking about with losing people to their own personal evolution, wherever it takes them, wherever it takes you. And I think the people who have physically lost others and loved ones might even be a reminder to us about how important it is to center and regain the ability to show some empathy while holding boundaries so that we can remain as healthy and connected as possible. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Mel's going to stick around for a few minutes. We'll have to close in about 10 minutes. But, till then, cheers, and hopefully see you again maybe tomorrow. But don't binge watch. If you've watched too many, I hope I don't see you. Just take care of yourself. That's the thing. Takeaway. If you learn nothing from this week, it's maybe a little bit better boundaries and self-care and how to